Okay, we're back now to show you how I take the images that I showed you how to locate in the earlier video and use the Silhouette Studio software to manipulate those photos for use in your jewelry, especially for etching. That's primarily what I use my software for. So the first item I want to show you is using the SVG files that we got from Etsy or wherever you happen to get your SVG files from. I want to show you how easy it is to import these and modify them for use for resist patterns. So I'm going to go open up one of those files. So I just go to File and then Open. And I already have a folder here with some things in it that I downloaded to make it easier. So the first thing that I'm going to look at is a feather that I purchased. And when I purchase these files, I get a number of different files. I get a DXF file. I believe this is probably a JPEG file maybe. And just different versions of the files, PNG file, PDF. There's a scalable vector graphics file. I have Inkscape on here, so that's what it wants to open with. But what I find works the best is a DXF file. So you just click the DXF link, and you should probably get those file formats as well. So I just click that link and say OK, and it's going to, if I click it, say OK, it's going to open that file for me in my Silhouette Studio, and it should open, full screen. So here's the file. Now, one thing to note about these files is this is a very busy file, right? There's lots and lots of different shapes that make up this file. This is not a single shape. If I drag my cursor over it with my selection tool, I just hold down the left button with my mouse and drag and select it, you can see that it has lots of little selections in there. So you can very easily move one of those little selections and really mess up your picture. So we don't want to do that. So we want to make it easy for us to manipulate the picture to begin with. So the first thing we need to do is we need to make this a compound path, so it treats it as a single image. And in our menu bar up here to the top of it, we can say Object, Make Compound Path. You can use shortcut keys, that would be Control E. But you want to select that compound path. Now you see that all those little bitty selections goes away and you've got one single selection. So you can click in here anywhere. You're not going to mess this up. It is a single item. The next thing that I want to do, because I want to create a resist pattern that I'm going to print out on a glossy magazine paper. And I need black and white images. So basically, black for the toner is what I'm trying to lay down on the surface. So I'm not worried about making a file that I can cut out with my Curio or Portrait or Cameo or whatever the case may be. This file is too intricate, and when I scale it down, you would not get a nice clean cut. It would be, and even if you did, it would take you hours to weed this puppy. It is just very complicated. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to color in the areas that I want that resist to be. So over on the right hand side is a toolbar, and all of these toolbars, or all of these items I should say, open up a panel, and there's a second place where you can actually access these same panels. If you go look at the menu bar, there's a section called Panels, and if you look at all the panels that are available, they are listed in the same order as they are on the right. Okay, so if you're less of a visual icon kind of person and you want to see it in writing what it is, use the menu panel. If you're okay with the little icons, and I still get confused and I have to kind of hover over them, you know, feel free. Use whichever one is easiest for you. So I want to select my image and I want to fill in this image with black. So there is a fill panel. And if I click that fill panel, it's going to give me your, standard colors to choose from. I'm just interested in black and I want to fill this image with black. Alright, so it doesn't fill the entire, every little gap and everything with black. It's just going to fill in those areas that are, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of contained. So it's a drawing, it's got outlines and stuff. But if you noticed when it wasn't filled, let's actually get rid of the fill for just a moment. There's like outlines all through this design. Alright, so those outlines are getting filled with the black. Now there's also a line style setting that allows you to choose the thickness of your line and to choose the color of your line. And in this case the color is already black, but you'll see that the thickness, there is no thickness. It's a 0.00 point thickness. So that line is just there to kind of show you where those drawing edges are, but not necessarily a thickness of a line. So if you wanted to take this image and make it a little bolder, you can actually change the thickness of your line. And I'm going to do that here. So I'm going to change this to 0.15, just a little bit of a bump. And when I hit enter, it should go up a little bit. And it didn't get bolder. You noticed it actually got less bold. So let's check our line is black. So maybe we need to bump that up a little higher. So let's go up 0.5. Okay, so that's bolder. I have a feeling when we bring this down to a smaller size, that's going to be just too bold. So let's go ahead and do that. So I want to resize this image because right now it's entirely too big. So let's say I want to use this to make a pendant and I want it to hang down. So this bottom part of this feather would become part of the bail, most likely. So I think I want the full length of the feather to be 2 inches. So I can resize this. I could do it by just grabbing these handles and resizing away, but it's hard to get exactly accurate. So if you have a very specific size that you want to use, there is a scaling tool here that gives you the ability to scale in percentages or actual widths and heights. There is this little lock aspect ratio button. Very important piece of information. If you have an image like this that you need to scale proportionately, you need to lock that aspect ratio. So it's locked now, and I can change either the width or the height, and it will scale proportionally. So I'm going to scale this down to 2 inches. We're working in inches. I didn't change this to millimeters, so we're in inches. So this equates to 2 inches. So I'm going to change that to 2 inches, and you see it reduced it down quite a bit. So now to see what I'm working on, I'm going to zoom in, and I quite like how that looks. It's a nice image. But now we need to think about how this image is going to look when it's etched. So because this is a resist, anything that you see in black becomes your shiny silver. And anything that's white, if you patina the piece, is then going to become black. So I like how this image looks as a finished piece. So what I need to do is I need to actually reverse the colors. So I want the blacks to be white, the whites to be black. So what I'm going to do is, I don't want to just mess up this image. I'm going to actually copy this image and paste it. So copy, paste. Alright, so now I have a second image to work with, and I've noticed this happened to me earlier. It's bolder, so for some reason this image and this image are not exactly the same. So I'm going to take down that thickness just a little bit. So we're back at 0.25 on the thickness on this one. They look the same. Alright, so I'm going to get this one out of the way, bring this one back in the middle. So this one is the one I'm going to work on. The first thing that I'm going to do is, if I inverse this and I make the fill white, alright, let's take a look at how that looks. Alright, so we're going to change that fill to white. Alright, so it looks like the original image that we had, except our lines are a little thicker. Our lines are black too, so if I change them right now to white, then it goes away, right? We don't see it. So we need something behind it to make that white pop. So you can do one of two things. You can put just a rectangle behind it. So let's do this. Let's just put a rectangle behind it, and we can fill this with black. So using my selection tool, I select it. Right now I'm in the fill panel, so I can fill it with black, and don't panic because my image is going to go away. Boom, it's gone, right? The only reason it's gone is because this rectangle, since I drew it after I copied the image over, it's on top. So we just need to rearrange the objects. So I still have my rectangle selected, and I can go into Object and Arrange, and I can send to back. Okay, so now I've reversed my image. Alright, and I've got this nice white area, and it's a little, it looks, let's zoom in. Alright, it's just losing a little bit of the image there because it was smaller, but you see this white would now be etched away, and the black is our resist, so it will stay that nice shiny silver. But in the end, when you put a patina on it, it's going to look like the image on the left, and I like that look. So you're kind of inversing what you're going to wind up having your piece look like. So that can get a little, that can kind of play tricks with your mind sometimes. So just keep that in mind. I think something that I like to do, because if I etch this, I would typically come through here and saw out around this feather. So what I like to do is I like to put an offset around it to kind of give me a cut line, basically a line to follow while I'm sawing, and it just makes it easier for me. So that's what I like to do. So I'll show you how I do that because it's helpful for me. I think it might be helpful for you. So I'm selecting the feather itself, not the rectangle. So the feather is selected, and I'm going to this offset panel. And this is a really cool feature. I love this feature. So helpful. Alright, so I'm going to select offset, and so offset gives me, an image outside of the initial shape. And you can't see it right now because it is black. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cancel this. I'm going to actually select my rectangle that's behind here, and I'm going to change the color temporarily to something that's a little lighter. So maybe just a lighter gray. Alright, so that's just giving me something, so I can still see my white feather. But any black edging that goes around that, I'm going to be able to see it. Okay, we can change all that after the fact. All right, I'm going to select my feather again. I'm going to choose the offset panel and offset, and now you can see the black edge that goes around the feather. But I need to pull it in because it's way too far away. So I can just start adjusting how far away it is and just play with it until I like the distance away. So this would give me my indications of where to saw my piece. Alright, so I like where that is, so I'm going to go ahead and apply it. So that actually gives me another image. If I can select it. Alright. That is behind, okay, there it is. That's in front of my rectangle. It's actually in front of my feather too, but it's outside of it, outlining it, so it's not going to affect it. But I'm going to change the color of that line because I want it to etch into the metal to give me an indicator of where to cut. So I'm going to change it to white, and I can leave it at 0.25 thickness. I could make it a little thicker if I wanted to. I think that's plenty. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to change my rectangle back to black. Alright, so now I see my feather, and then I see my outside edge that I want to follow when I saw it out. And then I have all this other in black, and that's just going to be a resist around my piece of metal. And you can make this smaller, you know, to fit the exact piece of metal that you plan on putting it on, or whatever. But this is how you would prepare your pattern to print out on your glossy magazine paper for a resist. So that was pretty easy, I think. Alright, so just remember, reverse your image, think about how you want the finished piece to look. Okay, so that's one SVG file. So let's try another one. Let's see if it's as easy. So let's open, I have an owl. Okay, and I have a DXF file. So we'll pull him in. Just take some moment. Alright, so here's another one that's quite complicated. Alright, and as you can see, there's individual elements as well. So, just like with that other file, I'm going to select the entire image. I'm going to make it a compound path. So now I have one single image to work with. And then I'm just going to fill this image with, wrong thing, using my fill panel with black. Ooh, he's nice. I like him. But again, this is how I want my final image to look. So I'm going to make a copy, and I'm going to reverse the colors. So let's see if I copy and paste him before I do anything else to him, if it makes any difference. So I'm just moving him off to the side a bit. I'm going to copy, and let's paste him here. Here. Okay, there he is. Alright, now we need to resize him. So let's make him, let's see, maybe 2.25 inches across. That's pretty good size. So I'm going to lock the aspect ratio, and the width this time I'm going to change instead of the height. So we'll make him 2.25. Alright, so he's been reduced down. So let's take a look at him more closely. That's a good looking owl. Okay, now let's change him to white. I still have my lines that I can see. So I'm going to go ahead and put a rectangle behind him for my resist. Also, when you draw these shapes, you can easily align them. So just go to Object, Align, Center, Middle. Everything gets aligned perfectly. All right, so I have my owl, I have my rectangle. I'm gonna, remember, I don't want to fill it in black because then when I do the offset, I won't be able to see it. So for now, I'm going to make it a gray color. Owl goes away. I'm going to move that to the back. So I'm going to arrange, send to back. Now my owl is back. He didn't go anywhere. So I'm going to select my owl. I'm going to the offset panel, select offset, and then I can reduce this down. Let's see where I like it. Oh, that's a little bit more than I wanted. Okay, I like that. So I'm going to apply that. All right, then I'm going to select off of that rectangle and try. Sometimes this is the tricky part. Okay, so I've selected the offset, and then I can change that line color. So if I open up the line style panel, I can make that white. And let's look at the size of the line. And it's teeny tiny because that line thickness hasn't been set. So we're going to set that to 0.25. All right. Now, we can fill in the rectangle with black. All right, that red line isn't going to print. There's no thickness to it, so it's not going to print, but we can change that to black as well if the visualization of it bothers you. So here's our owl. I think he's looking pretty good. And we have a second image that is ready to print for a resist. All right. So I don't know that I mentioned, but what I typically like to do, I'm going to go ahead and group this object group so that if I do anything with it, then it all moves together. And if I were ready to print this out to make a resist, then I would typically rearrange this so that it's kind of in the upper left-hand corner, and I would make copies of him, multiple copies of him, and then print that out. So, because sometimes when you're printing, you'll get maybe like a little, you may accidentally scratch it or something, and that toner will come off or just leave a little mark. So you want to select the best image that you can get. So I give myself a few extras, and you could also bring in other images, right? So with this feather, I'm going to go ahead and turn that line black too. Make sure that's grouped. Object group. And I'm going to copy this image. Copy, and flip back to my owl right there. And I'm going to paste him on the page. So I've got two images here, and I could print those out at the same time, you know, just ready to go, right? So that's how we bring in those SVG files that you can get from Etsy. And really the best format is the DXF format that you're pulling in. It brings it in beautifully, makes it quite easy to use. Now that we've finished our images, we need to save them so we don't lose any of the hard work that we just put in. We just give it a name, Save it as a studio file. Select OK. And now we've got a saved file. So if we want to go ahead and print, then we just select File and then Print. And you want to be using a laser printer, and you need to select any or make any selections that you need to ensure that you get the best print possible. You want the darkest print possible. For mine, if I select glossy paper, then that gives me a nice crisp print. And you can print this image now on your glossy magazine paper. You can also use P&P paper. There's several options that are available to you. So we'll come back and cover JPEG images, but if you like this content, please subscribe, like, comment, and let me know if you have any questions. I'll be happy to answer. So I'll see you back in the next video. Thanks.